Good afternoon and welcome to today's webinar, Teaching Digital Literacy Standards Remotely, presented by Vinod Lobo, founder and CEO of Learning Upgrade, and Drew Robinson, Director of Sales, Marketing, and Customer Service for Learning Upgrade. Today's webinar is also sponsored by Learning Upgrade. They have really been a tremendous partner to COABE and the broader field of adult education and adult literacy. And today's webinar actually follows up an excellent one that they presented on last week. So please welcome Vinod and Drew by saying hello in the chat section, and you can submit your questions in the Q&A section. And with that, let's welcome Vinod and Drew. Thank you.
Thank you, James. It's good to be back. We presented last week on our remote learning action plan. And today we're going to be focusing in on digital literacy and specifically how you can teach the digital literacy standards remotely. Remote learning and a remote learning action plan paired with digital literacy, were two separate talks. And starting in March, we got to see how much overlap there was. Digital literacy is a 60 lesson course that covers all the ISTE and North Star standards. And the timing we had always set up to release it in April, the demand pre-COVID was building. And then once school shut down and everybody had to quickly adopt a remote learning platform, the demand for this new course just exploded. And it wasn't just on the student side, it was also from instructors that wanted to fill in some gaps in their digital literacy skills. And so we'll be covering all of that today. Everything about how you can teach these standards, but more importantly, how you can launch this remotely, track and monitor all of your student progress. So before we get into that, let's just talk about the topic. So digital literacy is the ability to use information and communication technologies to find, evaluate, create, and communicate information. And this requires cognitive and technical skills. So digital literacy is incredibly important for equity right now. For a lot of your students that aren't able to come into a classroom, their ability to use information and communication technology is the difference between them being able to get an education and not get an education. Their ability to use a smartphone, use a computer, launch a browser, launch an app, and begin their learning process, starting a Zoom meeting, attending a Zoom meeting. This is incredibly important for your learners to be able to do. So we have a lesson that walks your learners through using that kind of technology, but also things for the workforce. Every job now, we're in a tough job market. Every job that you're going to get, with very few exceptions, is going to require digital literacy. Even if it's just filling out a time card in a digital way, communicating in a professional manner with management and your colleagues, that's the basic foundations. But a lot of jobs now require the use of spreadsheets and documents, knowing when to use, a cloud document versus a local document, what kind of etiquette exists online versus when I'm interacting with individuals in the real world. There's new topics, new gaps, and our goal at Learning Upgrade has always been to provide the foundational skills needed for every single one of your learners. So that starts out with English. Our ELA courses can take your learner from an NRS level 1 to an NRS level 5. We also focus heavily on math literacy. So, our goal is to get your learners to that HSE level, proficient all the way up into algebra. But we know a lot of your learners have gaps before then. So we can take them all the way from learning, addition, subtractions, counting, all the way up into fractions, and then we can get them prepared for the GED or high set. Now, ELA and math have always been the foundation of education, but in today's world and today's workforce, digital literacy is now a part of that. Digital literacy is required to take that next step in your life, to participate in the economy, and most importantly now to participate in education. So, I've covered the foundation of, why digital literacy is important. It's important in the job market and it's important in the classroom. And so what our aim is in digital literacy is, there's a requirement for a new skill set, And we're going to be providing you with all the tools to make that a reality for each and every one of your students. And this world presents many new challenges. So I talk about the current job market, and that's something that we definitely have to focus on. Digital literacy is required for many of the jobs that are available today. But most importantly, it's the jobs of tomorrow. We're not going to be going backwards on our reliance on digital literacy. As we move into the future, every single job that exists tomorrow, next month, and years from now is going to require digital literacy. It's going to require proficiency in all of the digital technology skills. So the individuals in your classroom, the individuals that will be coming into your classroom, they need to prepare for a rapidly evolving job market. And then in the classroom, students, this is again, even before COVID, students are finding and consuming much more content online. So when it comes to research, the likelihood that your learners who are already stretched for time, they're going to school, they have jobs, they have families, that they're going to be able to go to the library like a lot of us did and check out a book and research that way. No, many of our learners, when it comes time to research, they're finding this content online. So it's very important that they're able to discern quality information from information that's not quality, misleading information. Again, this is something we're going to teach in our digital literacy course. Creating digital content is also important, so it's not just enough to be an observer. In the modern job market in school, we have to create. And so that might be a document. If you're going to be, writing a paper for a classroom, how do you open up Word on your computer or open up your Google account, open up Google Docs to write a paper? And then am I going to be able to share this as an email? Do I then need to download this as a PDF and email it to my instructor? Do I share a link? These are topics that we're going to cover in our digital literacy course. And then digital communication and collaboration, whether you're interacting with your instructor right now over Zoom or Google Classroom, text, email, how do you conduct yourself? What's the proper way to communicate with individuals that are your peers, your boss, your instructor? We'll be getting into that in our courses. And then digital literacy is going to provide the learners with the skills to learn anywhere. And this is something that's, we were focused a lot of our time on pre-COVID, and COVID just accelerated the need for this. Is we know that for equity globally, that learners need to be able to learn at their own pace, at their own time, with the device they already have. And so all of our content is available on a smartphone, so your learners can take that anywhere they go and start learning. And you as the instructor can track and monitor all of their progress and activity. So our approach to digital literacy is simple. Our new 60-lesson digital literacy course fits into the Learning Upgrade platform. So as I mentioned, we have our 6 English courses, we have a reading and comprehension, we have math from K all the way through algebra, we have GED and HiSET. This is just a part of the Learning Upgrade app. So in order to teach digital literacy, we're not going to be able to do it at an NRS level 1. There's some language required when we're talking about coding and spreadsheets and job searches. And so what we can do, though, is teach this at an NRS level 4. And so what happens if your learner isn't at that level? Well, we can start out at that NRS level 2 or 3 with our English courses, build them up, and then within the same app, they can now start their path to learning digital literacy. This is something that we've learned from our time from winning the Adult Literacy X Prize, that we need to be able to do quick deployments and end fragmentation in the classroom. So we're not going to be asking our learners to download 10 different apps for 10 topics. With one app, they're going to be able to do ELA, math, and digital literacy. It's available on any web-enabled device. So of course, the smartphone is important. Digital literacy of 5 or 10 years ago was heavily based on a computer. You have to have a desktop or a laptop, and you have a separate mouse and you have a keyboard. But very few of our adults now, very few of our students anywhere are actually using computers. Many of them are using smartphones and tablets for everything that they do. And so it's important to have our technology on the smartphone, because it's going to instantly help them develop those skills. This is how I go to the App Store. I'm downloading an app, I'm launching the app, I'm clicking icons, I'm dragging and dropping, my keyboard shows up, what do I do now? So natively, just by using this device, their digital literacy skills begin. and then we'll get into the nitty-gritty throughout our 60 lesson course. So now that I've covered digital literacy, how do we pair that with remote learning? So with remote learning, this is where the students and the educators are not physically present in a traditional classroom, which is many of our schools still. There are a few that are going back into a hybrid model, maybe some are fully back, but the majority of our schools, our teachers are teaching remotely. And so in this, the information is relayed through technology. So many of you are using discussion boards. You have, Blackboard or Google Classroom. These are established and already in use in your classroom. You're probably just relying on them a lot more than you used to. You have video conferencing to meet with your learners. So a lot of you are using Zoom. Some might be using Meet if you're a Google platform school, or if you're in Microsoft, you might be using one of the Teams features. So those two, most of our sites, they have that button down. You've already adopted a messaging board or a discussion board technology. You've adopted video conferencing. But the one that a lot of our sites have struggled to address is the online assessments. How do we take our workbooks and our textbooks and our lesson plan and our presentations that we're so used to doing in a classroom, and then find a way to assess what our learners know on their own time? And so the second paragraph is really the important one, because what we've seen with remote learning is a shift from being purely synchronous to an openness to now work in an asynchronous environment. And so we've been so focused in the classroom of our learners come in for an hour, 3 hours, whatever your time schedule is, and we're doing our instruction. Maybe they're working on something in class. They do a little bit out of the classroom. But what we're seeing a lot with remote learning is now we can do this asynchronously. I can give a presentation at 10 o'clock in the morning, and that presentation's recorded. It goes up to my discussion board that I used for video conferencing, and my learners can now watch my presentation at any time of the day when it fits their schedule, when it fits into their work. A lot of our adult learners have kids of their own, and they're still trying to find out how they're going to get their kids to go to school from 8 to 3 using a laptop. So to have that asynchronous learning is really important for remote learning as a whole. Now, with Learning Upgrade, what you're able to do is have a fully featured online assessment that provides all access to the instruction for ELA, math, and digital literacy with tens of thousands of practice questions that you're going to be able to log into as an instructor, an LMS, track and monitor all of the student activities, see where they're doing well, see where they might need some additional instruction. So we'll be able to get into that when we talk about how you can deploy digital literacy at your site. So what are the challenges with remote learning? Well, we know that the rapid transition to remote learning was tough for a lot of you in March. Well, we've come a long way since March. You had all of spring, all of summer. Now we're here moving into fall, and a lot of you have plans ready to go. You're getting a little more used to this structure of getting online and doing your instruction on Zoom, finding ways to interact with your learners, keep in touch, track and monitor their activity. But one of the major pain points that we're hearing from every instructor and admin that we've talked to is this third bullet point, and that's going to be the deployment and fragmentation. So for a lot of instructors, they're getting frustrated because they're being asked to use too many different programs. They're being asked to use one for their discussion board, one for their video conferencing, and then maybe 3 or 4 different ones for content. So what we aim to do with Learning Upgrade is you're going to have your Google Classroom or Blackboard. You're going to use your video conferencing with Zoom, but we're going to consolidate your assessment. We're going to consolidate your instruction tools. And with Learning Upgrade, again, one app, you get 22 courses, over 1,000 lessons, and tens of thousands of practice questions that cover NRS 1 to NRS 5 for our English. Math, we can take you all the way from K to algebra and cover HSE. And then we have our brand new digital literacy course that'll take your learner from all the way that computer basics up to job searches. And all of this is going to be available on a smartphone. So no matter what smartphone your learners have, ours is available on iOS, Android, and on computers in a browser. We tested on the lowest end devices to make sure that every single one of our learners is going to have an equal opportunity to learn using our app. And this is important because almost every one of our learners now has a smartphone. They already have the digital skills required to use it. every single night before they get into bed or after they get into bed, they open up their phone, they launch Instagram, they launch Snapchat, Facebook, WeChat, whatever it is that they're using to communicate with friends and family, post pictures, watch videos on YouTube, watch Netflix. So it's a format they're already very familiar and comfortable with. All they need to do is download Learning Upgrade, and then their path to digital literacy proficiency begins. So what is Learning Upgrade? For those that don't know, it's two parts. We have the Learning Upgrade app, and then we have the learning management system. So the app is 22 courses, over 1,000 lessons. We cover reading, writing, math, digital literacy. All of our content is aligned to the standards. What makes it unique is all of our content is engaging. We use songs, video, and games to teach. It's available on any web-enabled device. And as an instructor, you can track and monitor all of your student progress from anywhere. So the key to the time on task that we see with Learning Upgrade is what we call binge learning. And this is where your learners log in, and just like when they open up your YouTube app and watch a bunch of videos there, they open up Netflix and shotgun through a season of content, and it's 3 a.m, we see the same kind of activity in the Learning Upgrade app. It's engaging, and our learners want to log in and complete lessons. And so we take a lot of cues from social media and what we see on other popular platforms. All of the courses are displayed up front. So if I'm a learner and I take the pre-assessment and maybe I place into English Upgrade 1, I say, you know what? I'm here at English Upgrade 1, but I see that Learning Upgrade has a path for me all the way up to that 5, which is the NRS level 5. And the psychology here is the same as Netflix. If you're interested in a show, maybe a friend recommended it to you, you search for that show, you find it, and you see, you know what? There's only one season here, and it got canceled back in 2011. You know, the likelihood you're going to buy into that and watch that isn't very high. Whereas if you log in and it's something like, you know, Friends, Seinfeld, where there's multiple seasons and you know there's tons of content, if you like this, you're going to have months of entertainment ahead, you're much more likely to buy in. So it's very similar here. Again, we want to end fragmentation. So your learners start out and they see that they have a ton of rich content ahead of them. So here we're going to be focusing in on digital literacy, but for your learners that are going to be learning about digital literacy, they also see, you know what, with this exact same app, I can get myself ready to take the GED. I can fill in any math gaps that I have. And you know what, I also need to work on my ELA HSE test. So let me go in and, you know, work on, you know, English Upgrade 3, 4, and 5 to prepare myself. And so that's something that's really helping us with binge learning, is the amount of content that we're able to provide your learners. So what does each one of our courses look like? So if we launch digital literacy here, every single one of our courses has 60 lessons. Your learners start out on lesson 1, and then they're going to work their way through to lesson 60. 1 through 59 are not timed. They start out with the instruction. Again, we use songs and video animations to teach. And then after the instruction, they're going to answer questions. We have tens and thousands of practice questions that are individualized. Give your learners instant feedback and remediation for incorrect answers. We'll walk them through how to get it correctly. And then lesson 60 is the final challenge, and that's the only timed lesson. So by default, your learners are going to move through one at a time. They need to get 75% or better to move on to the next lesson. On the practice questions, that's going to be considered a bronze. If they get 90 to 94, they'll earn a silver medal. And then if they earn a 95 or 100, they'll get a gold medal. Once they complete all the lessons above, you know, those markers, then they're going to earn a certificate. So if they get, you know, let's say bronze, they get the bronze certificate for the 60. Now, as an instructor, sometimes you want to assign lessons. So we do provide you the option to unlock a course and assign. So let's say, you know what, I know my learners don't need 1 through 8. They're really good there. But what they do need a lot of work on, you know, let's work on 34. They're struggling with video conferencing. They're struggling with chat. They're struggling with social media post and net etiquette. Let me unlock that 31 through 36 so I can have them jump right into where they need it. So here's what the learner engagement looks like. You'll see on the left, this is documents from digital literacy, but you know, it's not a textbook, it's not a book. We're gonna walk them through the instruction. We have a narrator, we teach with songs, we make it catchy, it sticks in their head, and a lot of them find that they're singing it to themselves as the day goes on. That's what the instruction looks like. And then after the instruction, now they're going to get practice questions. So that's what you're seeing on the right. Look at the bar at the top. We're going to tell them the course. So here we're looking at a Math 5, lesson 54. And then we calculate points in the big yellow box. They need to get 100 points to pass a lesson, and they need to do so at 75% or better. You'll see when we answer the question wrong here in that gray circle, it'll show as 0%. But most importantly, for this lesson for volume of a rectangular prism, we're dragging and dropping these numbers into our formula. The formula starts at the beginning of the lesson with green squares. As we submit, instantly the ones we got incorrectly show as red. So boom, I know I got those ones wrong, but more importantly, the narrator comes on. It's going to walk me through what I did incorrectly, show me how to get it correctly, and then scale it back so I can continue working and making progress. And this is really one of the most important reasons why we've added hundreds of adult ed providers just in the last few months, is feedback from students to their instructors who are talking about, as an assessment tool, when they're just working in a workbook, trying to figure things out, maybe they get the odd answers in the back of the book, but they really struggle when they're not understanding what's being taught. You're not in the classroom, you're not meeting with a tutor in a literacy center, you're not able to get that instant feedback from your instructor. Again, this is asynchronous now. Learning Upgrade fills that gap in with that built-in instructor that walks your learners through and shows them exactly how to answer it correctly. Again, it's available everywhere, so it can be used on iOS, Android, or in a browser if they're using a computer. And then you'll be able to track and monitor all of your student activity remotely. And I'll be able to show you that in a little bit. But right now I want to have Vinod come on as we do a deep dive into digital literacy and the standards that we teach using our new course.
Thanks, Drew. This digital literacy course is a real labor of love for Learning Upgrade. We've worked on it for 2 years, gotten a lot of feedback from all of you out there on it, and we already have tens of thousands of students enrolled. It's very exciting for us. What we wanted to do is create a Learning Upgrade course, like all the others we have, filled with music, interaction, fun, rapid learning. But we also wanted it to meet the new standards by ISTE, including digital citizenship, security, privacy, communications, technology, content creation. So what makes this so different? You've probably seen groups of lessons out there, resources from a variety of big companies and organizations. But what they often don't have is they don't have a structured course, lesson by lesson, with assessment, formative assessment, going through step by step. We do extensive mobile and smartphone learning, whereas in the past, everything's been very desktop and computer focused. We also include a lot of the new higher level topics like digital citizenship and net etiquette. We teach concepts, for example, when would you share a file versus sending it? How do you do group collaboration? When would you use a local document versus cloud? And then also we integrate everything together. There've already been some questions about what if my students are ESL or have various language proficiency levels. And you can use Learning Upgrade to kind of combine our English courses and our digital literacy. Okay, so we're going to get into our first demo. This is Cloud versus Local, Lesson 8 from the course.
Sandra has to give a presentation at City Hall about adding bike lanes. She wants to collaborate with 2 of her friends on the presentation slides, but they both live far away. They all have internet access, but she cannot access the internet at City Hall. To get this done, Sandra needs to understand local and cloud documents. Local storage is when documents are saved directly on your computer or phone. You can access those files quickly and make changes without internet access. But because the file is on your device, You cannot access the information from a different device or work with other people to share, view, and edit the files. Cloud-based storage means that documents aren't saved to one device, but to a server that can be accessed from the internet. If you are working on a document that is saved to the cloud, you can access it from any device. Now, it's your turn to master cloud versus local. Where should we put this document? Cloud or local? And why? Read this and select the answer. That's right! Select the best storage and reason. Good reason. Pick the best choice. Nope. Justin should store the recipe in the cloud so that he can easily access the recipe from any of his devices.
Okay, so that was a little taste of one of the lessons. I want to go through all of the lessons in a little more detail to show you what the map looks like. Those of you familiar with our maps, this is the 60 levels in digital literacy. So we start with the basics, computer and phone basics, network basics, what's the difference between Wi-Fi and mobile data, and then we get into things like content types, data storage, what's the difference between files and folders, how do I organize Google Drive files. We get into spreadsheets and documents, creating audio and video, and then the coding level, level 24, is very popular. Website creation, how do you make a website with WordPress, for example? And then finally, we get into more communications. So email, text messaging. A lot of people don't know the difference between a hashtag and a handle, or a direct message versus text message. Video conferencing will tell you the difference between a video call and a web conference, for example. And when we get into identity, net etiquette, we teach how important it is for your reputation online and how you have to know your audience and treat people differently based on whether they're work or friends or family. Content protection, passwords, online scams, dealing with strangers, these are all part of privacy and security. And then finally, we get into digital citizenship, advocacy and engagement, the digital economy, what are all the jobs that are available now that are so different than before, global citizenship, and then finally some technology levels like AI, virtual reality, Alexa, calendars, things like that. So this gives you an idea of what our lessons are all about in the course. So what are the standards that we've aligned to? So if you're familiar with North Star standards are more nuts and bolts. Can you use Microsoft Word to create a document? Can you turn on the computer? So the North Star standards we cover in great detail. We have an alignment on the website. I'm going to paste in a link to all our ISTE and North Star alignments right now into the chat window. Then the other standard is the ISTE standards. And these are a much more up-to-date and kind of conceptual standard. So with the ISTE standards, what we're getting into is things like digital citizenship, things like privacy and security issues. For example, what about the HIPAA laws that protect health security, and things like copyright issues, giving credit where credit is due. And you see the strands, creative communicator. They're much more on the broad levels. So if you click on the links, you'll see in the chat window our full alignments to both of these standards. Now, finally, we're going to get into a demo of our documents level. So this would be Google Docs, Microsoft Word. So you get a chance to see that.
Word processing programs, such as Google Docs or Microsoft Word, allow users to create a digital file called a document or doc file. Documents contain text and images. Some examples are essays, flyers, or reports. Let's process some word processing basics.
To create a new document, first choose File New. Type in the file name, the next thing to do. Let's look at the ribbon from left to right. Undo your changes, redo them to right. Change the font to make your text look good. Font size changes, the letter size as it should.
Select the answer. Perfect. Answer this question. Not quite. In the line spacing drop-down, select double. What about this one? Incredible! Follow the instructions. Wrong. In the Insert menu, go to Image and select the picture of the book. Try this one. Sorry. To undo the last action, just click the Undo arrow icon.
All right, so now I want to talk about how you can get started teaching the digital literacy standards remotely in your classroom. So before I get into that, I just want to remind everyone that everybody that doesn't currently have a Learning Upgrade license can fill out our pilot form, and you will get a free Learning Upgrade license for the rest of the year until December 31st. So Vinod has posted a link in the chat, and he'll be reposting that a little bit later. But every single one of you, if you don't have a license already at your site, just fill that out and we'll be able to get you set up with a license this week. And that's unlimited. Just let us know how many students you need. It's going to provide access to digital literacy, but also to our English and math courses. And so your students will have unlimited access to all of our Learning Upgrade content. As an instructor, you'll be able to track and monitor all of their progress with a full-featured LMS. And you'll also have access to our teacher whiteboard course. So we talk about the Learning Upgrade courses. We have 22 full courses that your students go through. They get instruction, they complete lessons. But as an instructor, you can also use what we call a teacher whiteboard, which is a fully unlocked version of Learning Upgrade that lets you teach in a virtual environment or in a classroom setting with our lessons. So you don't have to go through and watch the instruction and then answer practice questions in a structured way. You can pick and choose any part of that. So let's say today I'm teaching documents in my Zoom classroom, and all I want to do is start out with that song. I want to start out with the instruction to prime my lesson plan. With the Learning Upgrade Teacher Whiteboard course, you can do that. You can pick and choose any part, or maybe you have a lesson plan, ready to go. You're working on pronouns today, so you go through your entire pronoun instruction, and then you want to pull up the pronoun practice questions to do as a group. You can do that as well. So the teacher whiteboard's flexible on the teacher side of things if you'd like to use it for in-class instruction. So you'll get all of that with our pilot until the end of the year. So make sure if you don't have a Learning Upgrade pilot already, you fill out that form and we'll be able to get you set up by the end of the week. So let's take a look at our 4-step plan on getting started as a new program. So number one, we're going to take a look at teacher training. That's essentially what we're doing today. We're introducing Learning Upgrade. We're introducing the Learning Upgrade offerings with English, math, and then a heavy focus on our new digital literacy today. And what we want to show you in the rest of this presentation is that focus on the remote learning action plan. And so, we have a great program. We know it's effective. We're getting thousands of students who are logging in, completing lessons, showing their work, and we know it's an effective course, but what we need to do now is teach those standards remotely. We need to make sure that we can get our students onboarded remotely without ever seeing them. So we have to educate them about Learning Upgrade, get them to download the app on their smartphone, get started with digital literacy, and begin making progress. Now, luckily, we've learned a lot since March. We also learned a lot in winning the Adult Literacy X Prize on quickly onboarding students. So their process from getting your guide of, what we call our Getting Started guide, to having the app downloaded, to playing their first digital literacy lesson is only a 10 or 15 minute process. And my goal with the rest of this presentation is to show you how easy it is so that when you get that pilot email from us, you'll be able to take it, hand it off to your students, get them completing lessons, and then you can move on to step number 3 quickly, which is tracking and motivating their progress. After you track and motivate their progress, a lot of your learners are going to be making a lot of progress in a very short period of time. That is something, that's the benefit of binge learning, and we want to celebrate that student success. It's not unusual to see some of our learners go through multiple Learning Upgrade courses in a semester. Part of that celebrating student success, there's a competition we call the Learning Upgrade Challenge. Every single pilot holder is automatically enrolled in this. You don't have to do anything, but our highest achieving students, instructors, and sites can win prizes for their activity. So our student winner from the last semester, it was unbelievable, finished all of our English courses. And so to put that in context, that student went from an NRS 1 as an English learner all the way up to an NRS level 5 in the span of one semester. Now, they spent a ton of time. They spent 290 hours on Learning Upgrade in that semester, but they were able to go through all of our English, all of our math, and just got started working on digital literacy. So it's incredible to see what our students can achieve when we give them the power to learn asynchronously and on their own time. So again, just want to make sure everybody, can click that link. If you're on a smartphone and for whatever reason you can't click the link, you're watching us on your iPad and it's not opening in the right, app or browser, you can also go to learningupgrade.com after the presentation, and you'll see in our main menu a link for pilot request. You can just click on pilot request, and in the drop down, you can just select your member organization as COABE, and that way we know to give you the extended pilot. That way it'll go all the way to the end of December instead of a shorter one. So just make sure when you fill out that pilot form, you let us know you're a COABE member. Okay, so let's get started with our onboarding. So everything onboarding, when we're getting our learners into this remote learning action plan, is student self-enrollment. Most of our instructors now, we're not able to see our students face-to-face. So it's going to be very different than pre-COVID with our blended learning, where we could have our students in, we would walk them through the onboarding, give them access to new technology, and then we could begin the asynchronous part of things at home. Right now, we're really relying on our video conferencing, whether you're using Zoom or something else, where we can meet with our students. So that's one great way to do this. But if you're not able to get everybody available, on a Zoom meeting, it's also very easy to email or text the getting started instructions. So let's take a look at what that's going to look like. We're going to get your pilot request form, and then we're going to respond with your getting started email. And this is going to be unique to you as an instructor. The first thing you'll want to look at is this top content section, which says student self-enrollment. So every teacher is going to have a unique class code, and this is how our system knows to take a learner and automatically enroll them into your class during their enrollment period. You'll see a class code sheet link. And so the very first thing you want to do is open that. It'll open in a new tab or window on your device, and we'll be able to take a look there. And so this is what it'll look like. Learning Upgrade Self-Enrollment Guide, your class code is going to be displayed large, same exact class code that's in your email, And then there'll be instructions for your students on how to get started. Download the app, launch the app, click get started. There's a toggle button at the top of this screen so you can print this off in Spanish as well. And so the very first step you want to take is you open up this guide. You can save it as a PDF. You can take a screenshot of it on your phone or tablet, and you want to share this with every single one of your learners. Now, if you're a teacher that already has some classroom time set up with something like Zoom, then you can just share this document live during your Zoom session and have all of your learners go through this process with you in real time. What you can also do is the very last sentence there in the red content block. We also give you direct links to our app in the App Store, the Google Play Store, and a link for your students that want to launch the app right away in a browser on their computer. So you don't have to go looking for those in the app stores or online. You can just copy that final sentence, send that to all of your learners along with this Getting Started guide. So now let's go through what it looks like for one of your learners that's following the instructions. So they're going to download the app on their smartphone, or they can launch it on a browser. And this will be the first screen that they see. So following the instructions, we're going to click Get Started. After clicking Get Started, we get to pick where we want to focus. So, our content focus today is learning and teaching the digital literacy standards remotely. So we're going to get started on digital literacy. Now what I want to do is enter my first name, my last name, and then that 7-digit class code that was on my Getting Started guide. So I plug that one in right into the class code field. And again, that's how our system knows to take this account and automatically enroll them into your teacher account. The student ID field is voluntary. They can enter an email or phone number there if they'd like. Then after, we're going to show them their username, password, and school ID. This is what's going to enable your student to log in on any web-enabled device. So if they're sharing devices at home, maybe they used an iPad to enroll, but then their kid has to use the iPad for their classroom and they're going to have to use a smartphone later. All they need to do the next time they launch the app is instead of clicking Get Started, they'll just click that blue login button. They'll enter their username, password, and school ID, and they pick up right where they left off. So after clicking Go here, we'll show them their active course, which is digital literacy. They can also click on any grayed out icon and add additional courses. So if they'd like to simultaneously work on English and math with their digital literacy, they can do that. But really what's key here is this process from clicking Get Started, following the instructions, entering the class code, until seeing this course only takes 5 minutes at most. But that's not the magic. It's great to have a very quick onboarding. In order to get time on task, in order to get buy-in, make sure your learners are setting aside at least half an hour for this process, because we always want to make sure they do at least 2 or 3 lessons in their first session. And again, this is something we learned from YouTube, from Netflix, and other video purely entertainment apps, is that when somebody logs in to Netflix and they click on a show that their friend recommended, if they leave that show profile, the likelihood that they come back is almost 0. They just don't do it, even if it looked interesting. But if that person goes in and watches the pilot episode, then they watch 2 or 3 more right away, the likelihood that the binge watching begins goes up exponentially. So it's the same thing here with Learning Upgrade. Make sure our learners have 30 minutes set aside, they create their accounts, and they finish the first 2 or 3 lessons, and then the binge learning will begin, and they'll be off and running. So now that your learners have, started their accounts, they've completed their first few lessons, now as an instructor, you'll want to track and monitor all of that progress to see how your learners are making progress based on those digital literacy standards, as well as the English and math standards if they're going to be doing multiple courses at once. So here in the Getting Started email, you'll see your tracking class and student activity content section. We'll provide you with your LMS username and password, so you don't have to create a teacher account. We provide all of this for you in the email. You can just click that blue login link, plug in your username, password, and school ID, and boom, you're automatically going to be logged in right where you need to be. And you'll also be able to see all of your students that have already self-enrolled. So you're going to click log in, boom, you're in our teacher menu. I see all of my students that have enrolled. I see the courses they're enrolled in. I see who's made progress. when their last play date was, and then I can go back to my email and look at the instructions. So step 2, we walk you through the quick reports and how to make account revisions. Step number 3 is we tell you how to get into the in-depth reports for reporting time on task. So when you first log into your LMS, we're going to have your, this is what we call the teacher menu overall. The LMS is what we call the teacher menu. In the teacher menu, you'll see 5 main tabs, and then you'll see the 6th tab, which is help, which takes you our support page, which has documentation for everything. But when you start out in the students tab, you'll see your students below. First button for each student is edit. So if you ever need to change your student's name, if they typed it in wrong during onboarding, or they didn't capitalize, any reason, you can change their names by just clicking edit. If you'd like to add an additional course, let's say your learner is on digital literacy and they're making great progress, but you'd really like to nudge them into another one, say, hey, let's get ready for that GED math. You can add courses to your students at any time by just clicking add course. The key on this students tab though is, if students lose something. So let's say, hey, I wanted them to write down their username, password, and school ID. They forgot it. You'll see up in the main buttons there, you'll see print passwords. You can click print passwords and we'll show you every single login for your learners. So don't worry if they forget those. You can always quickly and easily retrieve that info. But for tracking and monitoring, what you'll want to do is click on the big button that says Student Monitor. So when you click Student Monitor, you'll get this screen. And here we'll show each of your students on the left with the course they're in. So here for the example, it's all English 1. For digital literacy, it'll just say DL. Every single course has 60 lessons, which show from left to right. And a tile will represent each one of the lessons that they've completed. If you hover over any of these tiles, we'll give you the lesson, the score, the number of times attempted. But what you'll want to do is have this pulled up, in a tab on a separate browser when you're working at home. And then you can just see all of these fill in as your learners work. Your time's short, so just focus on 2 things. If you see a red tile, it means they didn't get above 75%. So just hover over those, see what the lesson is, see how many times they've played and what their score is. Usually it's just below 75. They'll keep making progress on their own. But if you see they've played it multiple times and still have a low score, you can reach out. The second is if your learners are falling behind. So 3rd from top and 3rd from bottom, hover over those scores, see how your learners are doing, and then reach out if they need some additional assistance on a lesson. Now, also in the Students tab, you'll see on the far right, it says Start Teacher Course. So if you'd like to add a teacher course or start a teacher course, that's the teacher whiteboard course. You can just click on Start Teacher Course at any time, and bam, that'll instantly take you in to that teacher whiteboard for in-class instruction. So there's a lot here on this main page here for students. Now, next thing we'll want to do is go to the next tab at the top. So you'll see by default, we're in the Students tab. So now we're going to go into the Courses tab. And in the Courses tab, we'll display each one of your students' courses on their own row. You'll get to see the courses they're in, the level they're at. But what you want to focus on here is, number 1, if you want to unlock an entire course, all you need to do is click Edit next to that student course, and then you can type in where you'd like them to go. So, let's say you want them to go to 41, skip the first 40, type in 41, click Update, and they're good to go. Now, if you'd like to assign lessons, you just type in 60. That'll unlock all 60 lessons, and then they can jump around, pick and choose based on your assignments. Second thing you'll want to do here on the courses page is look at those individualized course reports. So every single course report, you'll log in. For digital literacy, you get subject area scores. And then the same will be for math and English. The subjects will just be different, but you'll see, how are they doing on devices, content creation, digital citizenship, technology. And you can go down, see this graph, you can see their improvement. So you'll see the high score versus the initial score. And then if you keep scrolling, you'll get all of this in a table. So you'll see the number of times they've played lessons, the number of minutes played. Focus here is just times played and minutes played. You can very quickly pinpoint and identify areas to work with your students. So phone basics, 5 times, almost an hour. But you know what? On their own, they went from a 71 to a 95, no problem. What you want to keep an eye out for is if it said 5 times played, 52 minutes, and their high score was still a 60 and they hadn't moved on, then that's an opportunity to reach out and work with them on that lesson. So those are the quick ones. We do students and courses. I'm not going to cover classes tab. And the classes tab is where you can just create additional classes. So if you'd like to organize your student groups into Monday, Wednesday, Tuesday, Thursday, evening, weekends, you have the ability to do that. If you're an admin, you'll be able to use the teachers tab to track and monitor the teacher accounts at your site. And then we also have other admin reports. We're not going to be covering that today. But for those of you that are admins and directors that would like to have multiple teachers at your site using this, I just want to let you know that we do have a powerful admin LMS that lets you track and monitor multiple teachers, or if you're an individual that needs to track multiple sites, we have both of those options available. But as a teacher, when you go into the reports tab, I want you to focus on two main reports. So the first is going to be the student progress report by date. So this one, you can set a start and an end date, and we're going to give you all of the time on task and activity within those time parameters. By default, we're going to show you each course here, but if you'd like to just, hey, I'm a technology teacher, I only want digital literacy, I only want English, I only want math, in the course dropdown, you can select any course or content areas and we'll filter it that way. Or if you're just interested in total time, if you have to report this to your state, then you can just do all by student, and then we're going to condense it down. So even if they're in 5 learning upgrade courses, we'll just give you one number for hours played based on the time parameter. And then the second report is going to be our student session time report. And this one breaks down every single session that your learners are logging. Again, you can plug in a start and an end date here, and then we'll let you see exactly when your students are logging in, how much time they're spending in each session, which lessons they're playing, and then most importantly now is which devices they're using. So this is really where you can see that binge learning come to life. Our hottest hours on the servers right now are usually from about 9 p.m. to 3 a.m. And so it's really clear this asynchronous learning is taking place after dinner while our learners are in bed, staying up late, working around their job schedules. And this is the report you can really see that come to life. So you can see those sessions, reach out to your learners that are going above and beyond and spending that time at 1 in the morning completing lessons. And then it also gives you the opportunity, if you want to reach out to a student individually, you can pull up this report and see if there's a daily trend. Say, hey, from lunchtime, maybe 12 o'clock to 1 p.m., consistently they're on learning upgrade. And that way, when you send an email, text, or make a phone call, you can target your conversation that way and say, hey, I see you're spending an hour a day around lunchtime. Let's hop on a Zoom and work through that lesson that you might be having some difficulties with. And then you can also, of course, with these subtotals, all of our reports in the report tab are table friendly, so you can take these into Excel or Google Sheets if you need these for external reporting. Now, finally is, okay, our learners have gotten onboarded. They're binge learning. They're making great progress. We're tracking and monitoring their activity. Now let's celebrate that success. And so that's what we do with the Learning Upgrade Challenge. And again, we have prizes available for the top program, instructors, students with the most hours, lessons, and certificates. A lot of our learners are self-starters. They have goals in life. They want to take the next step in their job, their profession. They want to do it for their family. Reasons vary. So there is that internal motivation, but it always helps to have a little bit more. And so, we have options for, gift cards and different things for the winners that they can pick from at the end. So let your learners know on December 31st, that's when the semester ends, and we'll be rewarding the top program, instructor, and student based on their activity for the challenge semester. So that's everything I wanted to cover today. Bringing you our digital literacy standards-based program that's available remotely for all of your programs. Again, if you don't have a Learning Upgrade license and you haven't already gone and filled out our pilot form, make sure you do so that way we can get you set up by the end of the week. And I really appreciate all of you attending today.
Drew and Vinod, thank you so much. That was another fantastic presentation. Wow, what a great set of tools. I want to thank all of our participants today. Thank you so much for joining us. I just launched our poll, so if you could take a minute to fill that out, let us know what you think. As a reminder, this presentation, along with the contents, will be posted to coabe.org within about 48 hours. So if you want to view it again, or if you want to share it with somebody, feel free to go to coabe.org and do so. So thanks everybody again. Thank you, Vinod and Drew,
James?
for another great presentation. Yes.
James, there have been a lot of questions about will people receive a certificate? So could you address that?
Yes, every participant does receive a certificate via email, and that comes within 24 hours of the completion of this webinar. Sorry about that. I didn't see that in the Q&A. So once again, thank you very much, everybody. Everybody have a great day.
Thank you.
Thanks.